All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and honestly highly unorthodox theoretical physics paper by independent researcher Gautam Pal. We're going to explore a framework that literally attempts to rewrite our entire understanding of reality. Specifically, we're zeroing in on subatomic quantum spin and cosmological dark matter, all through the lens of what's called the septenary geometry of the Trishul-Dhamru Matrix, or just the TDM for short. Let's get into it. To wrap our heads around this complex framework, here's our roadmap. We'll start with the modern physics paradox, lay out the architecture of the TDM, redefine quantum spin, look at the dark matter shadow, and finally, unify the micro and macro. Section 1. The modern physics paradox, a fundamental divide. So we've got to start where standard modern physics is, well, fundamentally split, leaving us dealing with two massive anomalies. You see, there's this profound incompatibility that has literally frustrated scientists for decades. On one side of the ring, we've got general relativity. This describes the macro universe. It's the smooth, continuous, four-dimensional space-time that gets warped by mass and energy. Totally makes sense for the big stuff, right? But then, on the other side, we have quantum mechanics governing the micro-universe. This is a discrete, highly probabilistic realm. Particles have these abstract fractional spins, but the standard model doesn't actually give us a physical or geometric catalyst for why those spins exist. The author of this paper argues that this huge disconnect, combined with the fact that we just can't seem to find dark matter, means we desperately need a completely new paradigm. Moving to part 2, architecture of the TDM, the K7 cosmic geometry. To fix this massive conflict, the author introduces a radically different cosmic architecture. Right at the heart of this new paradigm is the Trishul-Dhamru Matrix. Now, instead of the universe just bursting into existence from the chaotic explosion of a Big Bang, this paper proposes something highly structured. It argues that the universe actually shifted from an absolute, non-vibrational, zero-frequency state into the dynamic frequencies we see today, all through a very specific, perfectly balanced, 14-dimensional geometric matrix. Okay, picture this. The matrix maps reality across three distinct orthogonal vectors that all converge at a central singularity, which the paper calls the Dhamru neck. First, you've got the physical prong, sitting at 45 degrees. That represents our tangible 3D biological world. Then, acting as the central axis at exactly 90 degrees, is the subtle or mind prong. And finally, parked at 135 degrees is the causal prong, which governs the unseen, latent dimensions. It's kind of like a giant cosmic compass. Now, all of this geometry creates what the author terms the Dhamru metric energy vortex. Basically, imagine the flow of cosmic energy taking the shape of a massive hourglass. The central constriction point, that narrow waist of the hourglass you're probably picturing in your head right now, converges exactly at the 7th dimension. The paper suggests this absolute minimum radius acts as a concentrated core of light, and it's governed by this superluminal velocity of mind, meaning it links information instantaneously across the entire cosmos. Pretty wild, right? Section 3, redefining quantum spin, a geometric catalyst. So let's zoom way into the micro level and see how this geometric hourglass attempts to actually explain subatomic behavior. The magic number here is 14. The whole framework heavily relies on a 14-dimensional planetary boundary. Now, traditional physics usually treats quantum spin as this intrinsic, somewhat abstract non-classical property. It just is. But this paper asserts something totally different. It claims that quantum spin is actually a tangible, physical angular momentum. And it's generated precisely as particles are squeezed through that compressed 14-dimensional geometric neck we just talked about. The math kind of brings this all to life. The formula determines a particle's spin as a function of an integer state, represented by m, multiplied by 7/14. So, according to this framework, fermions, things like electrons, have a 1/2 spin because their state is m equals 1. Geometrically, this means they are literally physically trapped right at the midpoint of this 14-dimensional balance. But then you have gauge bosons, like photons, which have an integer state of 2. That results in a full integer spin of 1. Because, geometrically speaking, they have the freedom to just cruise right across that central singularity without getting dimensionally restricted. So it's actually providing a purely spatial geometric explanation for a deeply quantum phenomenon. All right, on to section 4, the dark matter shadow, a gravitational leak. Now we need to zoom all the way back out and see how this theory tackles the hugely elusive nature of cosmological dark matter. The author makes a really bold claim here. He proposes that conventional electromagnetic instruments, our most advanced telescopes and sensors, can't find dark matter simply because they are only looking at our immediate three spatial dimensions. If we use the language of the TDM framework, our instruments are strictly 100% confined to that physical prong. And that brings us to the paper's proposed solution. We know modern physics requires a massive amount of unobserved dark matter to explain why galaxies don't just fly apart, usually estimated at a ratio of about 5:1 compared to visible matter. Well, this paper argues that what we're calling dark matter is actually just a scalar gravitational leak. It's gravity leaking down from 5 higher latent dimensions straight into our visible 3D space. The geometric projection of those higher dimensions naturally creates a gravitational footprint that perfectly aligns with that missing mass ratio of 5.5:1. To put that in simpler terms, the mass energy hanging out within that 135-degree causal prong doesn't interact with light at all, which makes it totally invisible to us. But, and this is the kicker, its mass tensor still exerts long-range gravity. So the implication here is that the missing galactic mass that's confounding astrophysicists right now, it's really just the gravitational shadow of higher dimensions. And those higher dimensions are actively anchoring the geometric stability of our entire observable universe. Finally, Section 5, Unifying the Micro and Macro, the K7 field equation. So the crucial takeaway here is how this single mathematical theory claims to connect the dots between subatomic spin on one end and giant galactic orbits on the other. To tie the whole shebang together, the author introduces the unified K7 field equation. This essentially synthesizes the localized velocity fields of all three prongs we discussed, the causal, the mind, and the physical. It mashes these up with a planetary macro constant, Planck's constant from quantum mechanics, and that Septenary cosmic denominator of 7. It links all these pieces together into one continuous closed-loop equation. The result of that unified equation is a really profound mathematical claim. It basically says that whether you're peering through an electron microscope at a tiny spinning particle or gazing through a massive telescope at the absolute celestial boundaries of the universe, the underlying driving geometric torque is exactly the same. So, we've explored some deeply unconventional ideas today, to say the least. This paper is an absolute radical departure from the mainstream consensus. It swaps out chaotic Big Bangs and invisible dark matter particles for structured geometric leaks and 14-dimensional hourglasses. Whether or not this framework actually holds up to rigorous empirical testing down the road, well, it definitely leaves us with a massive question. What hidden, higher-dimensional geometries might actually be pulling the strings and structuring the seemingly chaotic universe we live in? It's for sure something to think about.